Hi, and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh, and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we interview people from various artistic disciplines. These episodes are sometimes full-length interviews from our site's articles and other times exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. And if you're new here, thanks for checking us out. We hope you'll like it and stick around with us. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with the famed Dublin rapper Nealo. Nealo discusses his latest album, November Medicine, his background in hardcore punk and his switch to hip-hop, the 3-year process of creating this record, how musicians today aren't rewarded for taking long periods to perfect a project like he has, his own maturing, what he sees for the future of Ireland, and more. There will be an article of this interview not published on our website, but actually published in the next edition of the Going Out Out Guide, also known as the GOO. So be sure to pick it up once it's available.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's the story? How you
I'm good,
doing?
man. Yeah, I'm good. Yourself?
I'm not too bad. Sorry for keeping you waiting there.
Ah, man, it's all right. Don't worry about it.
It's
Um,
walking dogs is not an exact science. So I'm kind of like in and out of the car the whole time trying to
that's
figure it
that's
out.
fair. Hey, man,
Yeah.
actually, before we began, I just wanted to say something. Actually, a couple of years ago, probably about 2 years ago now, I interviewed you for the Daily Star, and what's funny is I was thinking about this. That interview was for a promo event you were doing for Island's Edge, which
No way.
recently,
Closed
I guess
down.
it last. Yeah, I guess it
Shut
last
down.
long.
Yeah. No way. That's fucking gas, bro. And was that on the phone or was it in person?
I think it was on Zoom, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah. A couple of days before the event or something, maybe was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it might have been.
That's
Yeah, because.
gas, bro.
Yeah.
I mean,
um,
that was pretty good money that gig. Wouldn't mind another one of them coming up.
so hopefully Heineken comes out when there's still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
I
actually
mean,
quite liked it too.
it wasn't the worst ever. I think it just had a bad rep, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, like if you're gonna come against Guinness, like you're gonna have to go really strong.
You're going for the king.
Yeah. You can't be coming with like a half week product. Like it was grand. It was pretty inoffensive, but it wasn't like you're not
Yeah.
gonna topple Guinness. Like it's too fucking hard. They're
But
too entrenched.
yeah, I remember like when I was doing that, like that was like one of the first like I'd only kind of started like doing articles for the Star, and I remember I was writing like I assumed like the press release was all about like how
Mm.
like Island's Edge was like the best drink ever or whatever, and I was like
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this like the Star won't publish and how much, so I kind of wrote like it felt like very promo, and then my editor just took all that out.
Oh,
It
grand. Yeah. You're
just
like,
kind
I
of
don't
went.
know how much fucking propaganda they want here.
Exactly. I didn't know like how much like
Yeah,
when you're doing PR for the first time, you're like, oh
of
Jesus.
course.
So
It's awesome.
anyways, I just thought I'd relate that to you.
That's funny, bro. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you again. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, you know, obviously, I mean, 2023 seems like a really like massive year for you. I mean,
Mm.
like I guess like between them, because I've been 21, I guess. Like, what have you kind of been? I mean, obviously, you've been working on this record. You've kind of like gigging and stuff. I mean, how have you been? I guess.
Yeah, I've been up and down, man. Like everybody just been fucking mentally up and down,
Yeah,
like battling crazy with just being a musician and trying to make enough money to survive in Dublin and also like raising a child and like just trying to be trying to be happy as well. Like that's hard.
yeah,
It's like trying to achieve things is one thing, but like if you're not happy while you're doing it, then you might as well not do it. But I'm just happy I was able to get the record out, man. Like that was the main thing I wanted to do this year. So like to have done that on my own with no help, like from a label or no help from a manager or anything like that, like is a big achievement for me. So I'm just happy to get it out, bro. So mostly I was just working on that for the last 3 years, pretty much. Yeah. Like when you talked to me the first time, it would have been probably starting to play like live a lot of those songs that are on the
yeah.
album and stuff. And yeah, it's nice to have it out, bro.
Yeah, it wasn't actually when we would have talked. It was like we're just sort of kind of coming out of lockdown, I guess. 'Cause that would have been like the autumn of
Yeah,
2021. So yeah,
yeah.
I mean, like obviously you'd already been working on that record at the time, right? Like you'd already at least had the songs written. I don't know if you're in
I had it
production just yet.
started. Defo had it started, yeah. Like they were probably in production, but like nah, not in any way complete. But yeah, they're definitely all written, I would say.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I think I remember that particular Island's Edge gig that we were talking about. I did play some of those songs because I remember that was one of the first gigs where it was like I think that was literally the first gig where there was people back in a room again, or even
right.
if it was outside. But I
Yeah,
remember everybody being super awkward because they didn't know how to act.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
they're all just like looking at me and like because it had been so long since we'd actually done anything like face to face. It's
yeah.
fucking mad when you think about it now.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, then like you have to kind of like readapt to that, I guess, because like obviously, I mean, you've been around for a while, but like you
Mm.
have to kind of like I don't know, it's a weird thing. Like it's even strange to look back on. I mean, like I don't know if you feel this way too, but kind of like it seems like I guess people wanted to kind of distance themselves from COVID in a lot of ways,
Oh
and
yeah,
like the way
nobody wants to
people,
talk about it.
yeah, and I was gonna say like you wouldn't think we've been through a pandemic in the last couple of years, the way kind
I
of
know, man.
you go to like gigs
It's
and stuff, and
very
everything's just back
strange.
to normal.
I personally find it very strange that nobody ever brings it up. And if they do, like people are a little bit like, oh, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
mad.
yeah,
It's like it's almost like we're afraid that we're gonna speak it back into existence again or something, you know?
yeah.
Um, there's also a lot of mad shit that happened during COVID that are like still think about. I'm like, what the fuck was that 2.5K rule? Was that real or was that a dream?
Right.
Stuff like that where you're like, what the hell was that about? That was
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah, no, it is mad. Like, cause I
Yeah.
don't know, you really just like we've kind of adapted so quick to it. It's hard to even imagine like kind of like back then. But like, what I think is interesting is like even now we're still seeing like projects that like I still talk to people like, yeah, this was written during COVID, or yeah, this was
Mm,
like it started production during COVID and stuff like that.
mm.
Do you find that that time, the pandemic, in any way like affected the music? Because when I was listening to the album, I didn't really get a sense of like lockdown or anything like that. And I know I don't want to put words in your mouth. Obviously, if it didn't have an effect, it didn't have an effect. I don't know.
No, it definitely did, man. It had a massive effect on my life, like as it did on everybody's,
Yeah.
and just because the fact that I don't speak on it necessarily in the record, I actually did have lines that were like COVID references and stuff. But to be honest, I took some of them out because I was like, I don't really want this to be dated by that, the kind of way. Like I
Absolutely.
didn't
Yeah.
want it, yeah, I didn't want it to be that like a COVID album or anything, which it wasn't at all. But
Hmm.
like I just. Yeah, I kind of just took it out because I was like, ah, fuck, I don't need a lot of that stuff in there. And there wasn't much of it anyway. There was like, we'll say one or two, like maybe I would say COVID in a song or something like that. And I was like, you know what, I'll just take it out. You know,
Right.
there is like one or two, like Morgana says, counting the cases in like a hook on Forest, I think,
Mhm.
and I think that's a COVID reference because we would have been like walking through like the woods and shit, just kind of counting cases, seeing if we could hang out the next day because everything was on thin ice. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually,
But yeah, it definitely affected my life for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I actually want to talk about that because you mentioned Morgana there. It's like, yeah, I
Mm,
mean, like the album's actually like full of like really good features. I mean, you have Genova, you have Wilhouse, you
mm.
have Rachel McCauley and so on. I was like, yeah, I was wondering like kind of like when it came to like it almost seems like kind of paying it forward in a way, like you're kind of helping like young musicians in a lot of ways kind of get a bit of a leg up and a bit of exposure. And then so I was wondering, like for yourself, like I mean, like when it comes to like doing features on a record and stuff like that, I mean, how do you kind of like choose who you want to work with and who's like kind of right for any particular song?
Yeah, it's a good question, bro. Mostly I just go with friends. Actually, always I just go with friends. So everybody on that record, like Shiv, Morgana, Genova, Rebel Phoenix, like they're all mates of mine. Wheelhouse is the only person who I'm not friends with, but I am friendly with him. But we've only met like once,
Yeah.
because he's from Carlow. But he just kind of makes beats and sends them to me, and I'm like, oh, that's class, and then I'll just work off that. But the rest of the people, it's like kind of how I work is like whoever's around me
Yeah.
at the time, like who I'm hanging around with a lot. I'll work with them because they're the ones that might be, playing a gig with me or be in the studio or we'll be away together or something like that. So, like Morgana is just someone who I hang out with the whole time, and even more so now. So it just makes sense for us to do songs together, you know.
Hmm.
And then Genova, I just think he's amazing as a rapper. Rebel Phoenix, one of my best friends as well. So they're all kind of people, And you know what's beautiful about it? It's like it's a snapshot into that time period.
Yeah,
Like some of those people I don't even hang out with anymore. Some of the people I'm way closer with, like, and that's just life. And I think that that's a good thing about music. It can be this amazing memory of snapshot of this time. It's like, oh, remember me and that person were really tight and we were making music together, and like, there's no beef now. It's just like we're not doing that anymore, and it's just a
yeah,
different stage of life now. Um, I don't really reach for big features ever because I don't really care about that clinical, like my manager message your manager and we can make something happen. I prefer to just like let it happen organically. I think that's more fun.
yeah. No, absolutely,
Yeah.
and it also makes it kind of a little more personal. You know what I mean? Where it's like if it's just some guy you met, like I don't know, like a couple of weeks before you go into the studio together or something, it just feels kind of impersonal. Where if
Or
it's
on the
like
day, yeah, or just literally met him because I want him on the song because he's a big artist. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's a bit like that happens all the time, and that's like very transactional.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
you can't like artificially like generate a rapport with someone.
no, definitely not. And sometimes that can happen. I've
Yeah,
seen like big artists. You see it with like Hosier and Noah Khan or something like that. Like they obviously didn't know each other,
yeah.
and then Noah Khan reaches out to Hosier, and they actually sound great on a song together, and they actually seem to hit it off very well. Like that's beautiful as well.
Hmm.
But I don't have that reach to reach out to big artists like that. But what I can do, like you said, is I can work with smaller artists that are smaller than me, but I think are more talented than me. And I can try to get them on the track. And even if they smoke me on it,
Yeah.
I don't care because I'm old. I'm fine with it. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
grand. I got nothing to prove to anybody. I'm just here fucking talking about my feelings on a song. I don't care if
Yeah.
Nova smokes me on it. Like that, it's better if he does. In fact. Yeah.
No, that's actually really, I think that's like a really great attitude. Was that something you always kind of had, or was that something that kind of like developed as
No,
you matured?
yeah, I think it's because I'm older now and I've got not a lot to prove anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like I was in a hardcore band for a long, long time, and I was trying to be a tough guy, trying to be like the coolest guy in the room.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about any of that anymore. I think yeah, time just kind of wears a lot of that away.
Yeah.
You just and I still want to be cool. Obviously, I know like I'm actually cooler now that I don't care, which is
Yeah.
funny. You know what I mean? Like it's gas the way that happens. And it's the same with toughness as well. It's like when I was trying to be tough in my 20s, I wasn't.
Right.
But now I am. I'm older and I'm able to handle myself, and I don't feel the need to like flex that muscle anymore or like go out and get in fights or anything like that. That's seems to be just goes away from me. It's funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I kind of get that. Like, even because I'm like 29, even like kind of like
Mm,
approaching my 30s now, I kind of feel like
mm.
I don't know, a lot less inclined towards, I guess, like image or whatever.
Yeah, you've a lot less to prove, even to yourself. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 actually it's one of the merciful things of life. I think is that your teens and your 20s are quite insecure, and like you're always looking at your image, and like,
Right.
bro, even back in the day, I'd be like, I was always into like metal and hardcore, but like I'd be like trying to find mad obscure bands just to be cooler and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no,
Like
totally.
I like that. That's so funny to me now. I think about that and I just laugh at that person because I'm like, wow, that's the opposite of actually being cool. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember like being in like when I was like a teenager, got into like the punk scene. Like, I
Yeah,
remember being
yeah,
like on, Tums.com. I remember being
yeah,
like on all them.
yeah,
I remember
yeah.
being on all them forums and stuff like that. And the kind of punk scenes, like it was always just like it was this weird kind of like rigidness where it's like, well,
Oh, bro.
you
Yeah,
you can't like this
yeah.
band. This band's too pop. This and
Of
it's like, oh my
course.
god.
Yeah,
It's funny because like punk was sort of about like the disestablishment of kind of established rules, and like it kind of became somewhat uniform.
yeah. And the mad thing about all that stuff is, and like that is like that's my experience. Like a lot of my experience of the punk scene, like
Yeah.
and where I grew up in and stuff was that those attitudes on message boards of people being like, "You're
Yeah.
not cool enough," and then me learning from that and going,
Yeah,
"Oh, you're not
totally,
cool enough
totally.
either." It's which is crazy because it's like then it just becomes like a popularity contest, like the exact same as what they hated in school,
Yeah.
and it's so mad to be that way. But like, it's just human nature to be elitist. I
Hmm.
think, and to gatekeep music. People do it a lot, and yeah, it's funny. I wonder what the maybe that's I think it goes out of people with age for sure. And the people that still do that and they're in their 30s, you're like, you're a fuck. What are you doing with your life? You know what I mean? It's like, come on, you got better things to be doing than fucking telling a teenager to listen to different bands.
Yeah, and yeah, it's and like the other thing I'm thinking of like too is that like I think like even kind of like when we were younger, I mean like it was sort of more genre driven. I remember like even it was sort of like a kind of if you were to grow your hair out and like wear a black hoodie to school, that was kind of like a declarative statement. Where now it's like hard to imagine that. Like it was always kind of like genres were somewhat divided, and it was like you're if you're into rock music, it's kind of like that's your identity. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Where it feels like now everyone's just kind of like doing whatever they want, and I think it's kind of like
I like that. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Like
it's very
there was a
liberating.
lot. Yeah, it's very liberating. There was a lot back in the day of it was very stifling the way like when I grew up in Clonsilla and Blanche, and it was very like you would be a target if you were into metal, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
or if you
absolutely.
carried a skateboard, like
Yeah,
you're putting a fucking target on your back, which is mad when you think about it because that's so bad for creativity.
yeah,
Because then you're making everybody want to be just this normal person who just likes pop music that's on the radio or
yeah,
whatever's cool. I
yeah.
don't.
It's
I'd like.
conformity in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It is conformity. Yeah, I'd like to think that it's not like that anymore.
Yeah,
It doesn't look like it is. It looks like people are able to express themselves a little bit more,
yeah,
which is nice.
yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like I remember like it almost became like a gang thing where it's like you see
Yeah.
like around Central Bank, you see around Stevens Green, around Asha, all the music shops as
Yeah,
well.
because it was strength in numbers, you know?
Exactly, it was always like you'd have to
Yeah,
like kind of go around. Then like I remember like as a teenager, like then like getting Lewis home my own stuff, being like, "Am I okay?" It's like it's so weird to think
yeah.
about that. You know what I mean?
And at that age, because you're so much younger, you are a target. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
we're not targets anymore because we're older and
yeah.
different kids are targets now. But like, bro, I remember having a gaff party in my house when I was really young and I was friends with everybody. Like I would have been friends with the lads on my road who, some people would call like, the rougher lads,
Hmm.
and then also like the rockers as well and shit. And I remember like the mixture of those being so hilarious, like in my house. But I remember this one guy being like, this guy was wearing like a Cradle of Filth hoodie or something like that, one of my
Uh-huh.
mates, and this other guy was like, do you know what we do to people like you in school? We like shove compasses up your arse and stuff. Like the
Jesus.
pointy out. And he was just telling them, like he wasn't threatening to do it. He was just like
Yeah, matter
explaining
of
to him
factly.
the way things work, which is just so funny, man. It's just like, what the fuck is this? Like, it's just mad that you do that to someone just based on their, like basically it's calling them subhuman, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
funny.
I remember even within that scene, then you get people who would still gatekeep. So, say for example, you'd have like a kind of an older guy who was into like I don't know Metallica and Slayer and blah
Yeah.
blah blah Nirvana, and then he'd be like, "Oh yeah, if you listen to like My Chemical Romance or something like that, like that's fucking shit." So
Oh
even
yeah, yeah,
then,
that's gay,
there was
bro.
the yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking about this the other day, man. It was like it was weird because like the amount of like common like homophobia and bigotry and racism and stuff that was in that scene. It's like you look back on it and you go, Jesus Christ.
I know, and it's mad because it was in every scene though. Like, it was
Yeah,
just back
totally.
then the standards were completely different of what you could and couldn't say. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
sure, rappers used to drop the F bomb in songs all the time. And like,
totally.
imagine someone doing that now. You'd be like, "What the fuck are you thinking, bro?"
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's even like I was thinking, I was like looking back at like old films and stuff and just hearing like, yeah, from around that time, like 2000, like mid 2000s and stuff,
mm.
and just like how common everyone just used to call stuff like retarded and like Jesus
Yeah, yeah,
Christ.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Like
definitely, yeah.
fucking hell.
I know it's mad, isn't it?
And
It's
like
mad
how
how quick
far
things
we've kind of
change, though,
come.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's like we had this like really, I think, quick like cultural shift, I think, in the
Mm,
like the 2010s, I think. And like some people kind of resented it. It was like weird, but it's like I don't know, man, like the passage of time happens and I think it's better. Like I think ultimately it was a weird transitional period, I think, for a lot of people, but I think like now it's like, well, it's better now. Like that's the thing, it's like it is, I feel anyway, like just my opinion, it's kind of like, you know, it seems like you have a lot more people who are kind of consolidating. It's not like I don't know, you get some kind of like weird people who are trying to bring it back to that style who are kind of like, no,
mm,
more division. But I think it's like I
mm,
think we're in a much better place now. In terms of like even like dumb shit like we were talking about where it's like, you can't like like before like you couldn't listen to multiple genres of music. Like now
mm.
we're kind of like we're so past that, you know what I mean?
I feel like people have definitely relaxed on that for sure. Like they've relaxed on the gatekeeping music a lot. I
Yeah,
don't think any genres really do that. I think people are just they're quite open to all different styles now, which is nice, you know.
yeah,
And like even people who are diehard metalers and stuff like that would listen to all genres, and like a lot of them would listen to rap or pop music now and stuff as well, which is nice.
yeah. I
Um,
think it's really great.
I think the world is just getting a little bit more even or something like that. Like it's evening up in the disparity between like the kind of like genders for a start, and then also with like shitting on people who have special needs, stuff stuff
Yeah, yeah,
like that, or like using that terminology, it's not acceptable anymore. I think
yeah,
it swung very far one way, and then it's kind of evening out in a nice place now.
yeah,
There was a while where it was like you couldn't say anything on Twitter, and
yeah,
even if you were doing the right thing, you weren't doing the right thing because
yeah.
you weren't doing it in the right way.
Right.
I think that probably needed to happen because we needed a big shift over, but
Mm.
I think now it's kind of evened out a little bit. But now you have all the right wing fuckers that are like, oh, like
Yeah,
it's like they're just moaning about everything now. Oh, trans people, blah blah blah. It's like shut
yeah,
the
yeah,
fuck up. If it
yeah,
doesn't affect your life, then shut the fuck up about it. Like, why are
yeah.
you obsessed? Why are people obsessed with trans people? It's so funny.
I know. I was
Like,
thinking about that too. Like, where it's just like I don't know, because
like
like it's
Graham Linehan, it's like, bro, you've
yes,
destroyed your whole life. You literally burned your whole life around you to make a fucking point that didn't
no.
even get made. It's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
What a
the Linen
waste.
stuff is like really sad to like watch because like
It's
I was
so
such a
sad.
huge fan. Obviously, like everyone like Father Ted is like such a
Oh yeah, grew
important
up on
thing.
Father's Head, bro. Yeah,
And then you
grew
just
up on
like
that
look
shit.
at it, it's just but it's like it almost seems like with the Linehan thing, it almost seems like it's not only a matter of, him losing like his kind of respectability and his credibility, but it's also like
Mm.
he's become so humorless. Like he's just not funny
Yeah.
anymore.
No, lost his head. Yeah, lost his mind.
I think that's like
Like,
shows what bitterness can do.
man, that's a great point. Like, absolutely, what bitterness can do to a human, or to be just so fixated on this one thing. And it happens with conspiracy theories for people as well. It's like a lot of conspiracy theories are based in real shit.
Yeah,
Like JFK probably was a conspiracy. You know what I mean?
true.
9/11 probably. There's
Yeah.
something fishy went on there.
Yeah.
There's certain elements of COVID that you're like, okay, that was a bit weird.
Hmm.
But if you get obsessed with that stuff, man, you're fucked because you start to look in the world in this cynical way where you can't change any of this stuff that's happening. And the trans stuff is the same. Like at the right wing or even the Ireland is full stuff.
Yeah.
If you're going around with a hammer, everything becomes a nail. Like you just like look, everyone is out to get you, every system is out to get you,
Right.
and it just becomes an unpleasant, bitter world to live in. I think that's probably what happened to Graham Linehan. It's like he just became obsessed with this one thing, and then because he's got so many yes men on Twitter saying, "Oh, you're fighting the good fight," he's like, "Oh, maybe I am fighting the good fight,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then without him looking, his whole life gets destroyed. Like his wife and kids are gone, and like everybody
Yeah.
hates him, and like
You can't get
all that's
work and
over
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all over some like person changing their gender. Like it
You're
doesn't
right.
affect his life in the slightest. Like
Yeah.
so mad. Yeah.
What's like I think what you have like and because you were kind of like touching on the Ireland is full people there too. It's
Mm,
I think you have kind of like people who have a dissatisfaction with the world, but it's kind of like very
mm,
misdirected. I think there is a
mm,
lot of stuff to be legitimately upset about. I mean, like the housing crisis,
mm.
for example,
A
a lot
hundred
of these
percent.
issues, like which obviously your music touches on too, like the social
Mm.
issues of today, but people misdirect them. They kind of like put it on migrants or they put it on like
Yes.
it's like I don't know. It's like it just seems like I was really embarrassed when Sky News was reporting on what do you
The
call it?
rights.
Yeah, well, even before that, when the stabbings happened, they were just reporting on it before the riots had happened, and you just had a news reporter giving a very like clinical, here's what happened kind of description, and then we could hear people in the background shouting because they saw the cameras, refugees out and stuff like that. I'm like,
Mm.
oof. And then like when I saw like the Holiday Inn getting burned, I'm like, oh, and it seems like this how like kind of that kind of hatred and bitterness can kind of
Thanks.
eventuate
One
into,
sec, bro.
what I mean?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One sec. Sorry, just doing an interview, Will. Constantly doing headphone interviews. Sorry, bro. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Grant, we're back in business. Sorry, pick up a dog.
Yeah, no
Sorry
worries.
for getting on there.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like you have I don't know, like just a lot of misdirected anger and kind of like they're based out of legitimate kind of
Yeah,
fears and anxieties, but just I don't
and
know.
it's really the government's fault. Like it's kind of a this whole Ireland's full anti-migrant sentiment is like it's not the first time this has happened. It happens in loads of countries, and it's happened historically where countries get really wrecked by the government, and
Yeah.
there's nothing left really. Like essentially, we've sold Ireland off to big corporations, big
Hmm.
tech, banking, and a lot of other shit. And we have a really high fucking GDP,
Yeah.
but the people are poor, and
Yeah.
the cost of living is going up and up and up. Like I don't know about you, but I pay fucking 12.50 on my own, just me.
He's yeah.
That's not sustainable for anybody. Especially
Right.
I have a kid on my own. Like it's just fucking crazy. And if I didn't know better, I would listen to these guys and go, yeah, they're giving all the way for free, like they're undocumented people
Hmm.
coming in because Ireland has taken in a massive influx of refugees over the last few years, as we should.
Hmm.
But because we've given away a lot of the money and we've not, capitalized on the kind of investment we've gotten from the EU and we've gotten from all these tech companies, we've just sold it away to the highest bidder. Like the vulture funds are literally buying up land left, right, and center. And that is kind of what people should be pissed off about. But because we can't get at them because they're very smart and they have big lawyers and you can't really, they're so veiled in all this, I would say like shit that's hard to get through to understand how
Hmm.
those vulture systems work and stuff. It's really easy to go, right, that fucking Algerian is coming in, he's getting everything for free and he hasn't worked for 20 years. That's the easy way of going about it. And what happens is you have these right wing guys who are quite good at speaking sometimes. And they also like do the old, I'm from your neck of the woods and like I'm blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening. And it's just it's an easy way out. And it's like you're saying, like people are very misdirected and they're searching for something.
Yeah.
And then they find this and it's something to latch on to. And I don't necessarily blame those people. They're wrong, but I don't blame them. I blame the government for allowing it to happen, and I blame the government for not spreading the wealth in a way where these people feel more entitled, in their life
Yeah.
because they deserve it.
Yeah.
Like it is like the north side of town is chaos, bro. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's even like I don't know if you were to hypothetically imagine a scenario in which like everyone who wasn't natively born in Ireland did in fact leave, like the
Mm.
situation's not going to get better for anyone. Like there's just no end game where it's like
Oh my God. Well,
like
we'd
what
have
you're saying
nobody
doesn't have yeah,
to do the jobs that the
be
Irish
much
people don't
worse.
fucking want to do because they want to do other shit or they want to leave the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think what would really be exposed if all those migrants left is how many people have emigrated from Ireland. That would really be exposed.
yeah,
Like because like a lot of the people that have emigrated to Australia or Canada or Germany or London, they've all been the people that have worked in these lower wage jobs, and they're like, why the fuck would I work in a lower wage job here when I
yeah,
can't afford a gaff?
yeah.
Like it's almost like, yeah, it's just a weird situation, isn't it?
Totally. And actually, one thing I want
Yeah.
to ask you, because like, obviously you're like into poetry, spoken word,
Mm.
music. Do you find like you were mentioning with these kind of like right wing public speakers, I mean, do you find you're able to kind of decipher the rhetoric a bit more given your profession, or I don't know, like how do you kind of view what they're saying from that kind of lens?
Like, am I able to understand? I never find them hard to understand because I don't think they speak in any kind of language that's hard to decipher.
I mean more
Like,
about their approach to kind of like deciphering their message to the public. Do you find it it's kind of like I don't know, do you see the rhetorical tricks they're doing more, or do you find like, you just kind of like approach it the same way like your average citizen would?
well, that I think what these guys use is they use base human emotions,
Yeah.
anger, fear. They're the major two emotions that are used to mobilize people into hate. Like it was the same. It's been the same through history. It's the same things that Hitler used. It's
Hmm.
like, Hitler's using the other. It's really easy to be afraid of what you don't know and you fear what you don't know. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what racism is, isn't it? It's like, and these people, like your man Philip Dwyer, or like, whatever. I don't know if that's the real name. I can't remember. I won't start naming it now. But
Sure.
they use that, that's what they use. They use fear, they use anger, and they fucking mobilize people in that way. And it's really easy when people have nothing because you're like, well, if my life hasn't gone the way I wanted to, I got to start pointing the finger at someone else. It
Totally.
must be these refugees coming in, and
Yeah.
but they don't know that. The mad thing is for me is like they always want to talk about people who are coming here and not working. That's the big one, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
unvetted, undocumented, military age males coming here and not lifting a finger. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
But
But
that's a
it's like not
rhetorical trick too, you know?
totally a trick. But you have to remember, human nature is not to sit around. Like there is certain people are very like 1% of people maybe that will actually be a sponger for the whole fucking life and not ever do anything. But
Yeah.
have you ever sat around for 3 weeks, man? It feels like shit. You
It's
feel like
awful, yeah.
shit.
Yeah,
And
I've
like,
been
I
there.
don't think, yeah, me too. I don't think anybody wants to actually do that their whole lives.
Yeah.
Like on a base level, people actually want to be productive. They want to start businesses. They want to be doing something with their life. So I think to say that people just want to come here and sit around, maybe they do want to rest for a year because they've probably come from a really difficult country.
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough. I think, yeah, you have some recuperation time and then, get to chasing something that you want to do. But this idea that all these foreigners are going to come over and like sit around and just sponge off social welfare their whole lives, I don't think that's real. And I think no matter what race or color you are, everybody wants to be productive in some way.
Yeah.
So I think their argument is wrong in that anyway.
The other thing I actually want to mention too is like just like to go on your point there is the other factor is I think people don't want their finances to be kind of like monitored and audited at any point by
Yeah,
the
by the
state.
government. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Because like,
exactly,
I don't
exactly.
know if you've had that, but like, where you just randomly get like, they can just randomly ask for like a bank statement anytime and you're like,
Oh,
fuck,
hey, yeah. When I
it's
used to
so
be on the dole, I
inconvenient.
used to hate that shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to hate when they call me in for meetings or something like that. I'd be like, oh, I just want to get off this. And
Yeah.
as soon as I was off it, I was like, I never want to go back on this because, like, you do feel like you're kind of under a bit of extra scrutiny, like almost
Totally.
like imposter syndrome. You're like, they're gonna catch me any day now.
Yeah.
They're gonna get me.
And actually, this is something your album says on, I think it was on Blanche Interlude.
Mm.
You talk about like how like the money you get like proportionally is not proportionate. Sorry, the money you get from the state is not proportional to the cost of living at all. Like no one can live even like a very like I mean this might sound dramatic. I think it's just above the poverty line what you're getting.
I don't think it's even, man. I don't think it's even hitting the poverty line because what is it now? It's 211 per week or something like that.
I'm not
Is the
entirely sure.
goal? I think it's 211 a week. Can you imagine trying to live and pay bills and pay rent on 211 a week? Like
Yeah,
it'd be impossible.
yeah,
That's not possible in Dublin. That wouldn't even cover your rent. It's
yeah.
like, and never mind that shirt. If you go shopping like for weekly groceries now, it's like 100 quid easy,
Oh yeah,
like
totally.
no bother. So yeah, that's not a lot of money at all.
No.
It's not easy to live on that.
No, so yeah, I mean, I think like when you just break it down, I mean, it seems like if you actually talk to people who have that kind of like lived experience, I'd say it's like, you just see like how unsustainable a life like that would be anyway. So like, no one's aiming for that. Like people go,
No,
oh, they're coming over to sponge on the welfare state. It's like, I don't know, man. If you tried it, you can realize like that's not
I
sustainable for
don't
very
think it's
long.
that fun. I don't think it's that
No.
fun. And I don't think it's human nature to want to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a certain small percent of people, like I said, but like most people want to make something of their lives, and that's not sitting around all day. They want to fucking do some shit.
Yeah. Actually, let's
Yeah.
talk. I kind of briefly touched on your album there. I want to talk about so November Medicine.
Mm.
It came out last month, right? So,
Yeah, it came out the end of last month, yeah.
yeah.
27th, yeah.
And
No,
so,
sorry. Wait, yeah, 17th of November, yeah, sorry. So like only 2 weeks ago, really, 2.5 weeks ago.
how have you been kind of finding the reception since it kind of came out? I mean, obviously, like just from my like just having listened to it, I mean, like you can really tell the effort that's gone into it. Like it really does seem like you poured a lot of like time, effort, and kind of personal stories and personal kind of I mean, I don't know if this is correct, but to me as a listener, it kind of felt like from your perspective, it felt like kind of therapeutic. I can imagine it was a very therapeutic record. I don't know if that's your kind of feeling on the record.
No, it was very therapeutic. Like to make, I probably got the most enjoyment out of it that anybody will get. Like after I wrote the songs,
Yeah,
like I'm sick of them now. I'm not sick of them. I still listen to them the odd time, but like I, bro, as soon as I wrote some of those songs, I listened to them for to death. Like, and
yeah,
that's the real test of a good song for me. I'm like, I'll always listen to a song that I make the next day. I'll probably listen to it religiously,
yeah.
but like if I'm still listening to it like 5 songs later,
Hmm.
then I know it's a cracker. You know what I mean? So a lot of like I probably threw away like 20 or 30 songs in that whole process.
Hmm.
Um. So yeah, I got a lot of therapy out of that, man. It's nice to just put your feelings out there like that and have it sound good as well.
Yeah,
Just helps a lot. And Adam Shanahan, he's the producer. He really fucking helped that make that happen. He really was there for me every single week, and like, man, I wouldn't be able to do that without him.
yeah. Um, but like when
What
it
did
came
you?
to,
How do you think it's been received, just from an outside perspective?
I mean, I didn't see like many like of the reviews I saw. I mean, like everyone seemed to like really enjoy it. I really enjoyed it.
Mm,
I mean, from like my perception too. But I mean, like obviously I think like I'm not like it's not my art that's being like critiqued.
of course.
So I could never have that perspective really.
Mm,
And actually I kind of don't really review music. And that's how I started. Like I guess in music journalism, doing reviews, and that's something that I don't really do much anymore because I kind of feel
right.
like my personal
Bias.
perception. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, my personal perception is kind of like I don't want like I don't know. It's a weird thing to say, but I always feel like well, who am I like as an authority
Mm.
for other people in a way?
It's a
I think
tough, man.
also
I couldn't do it myself. It's a very tough job, and also you're gonna piss off a lot of artists because you can't give everything a good review because everything's not great.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And you're gonna have to say some real shit. And oftentimes when you're saying that, like people don't want to hear it, because their art is very precious to them.
yeah,
So it's a tough job, man. I definitely have to give kudos to reviewers. As
yeah,
much as I hate when bad shit gets said about me,
yeah,
you need it sometimes, and it's someone's got to do it as well.
yeah,
Um, Now I'm lucky that, man, in all of the reviews I got for that record, there wasn't one bad thing said about any fucking song, which is amazing.
yeah,
I think one person in one review was like, at the end of Forest, he just gets a bit ranty, but that was literally the only bad thing. And I was like, that's fair. But
yeah.
like, it's crazy to have an album be reviewed by all these papers and fucking radio stations and everything, and then not one bad word be said about it, and like get like 4 stars is the least it got, in anything, which is so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think it's deserving of it too. From my perspective, I mean, like, what I was gonna say is that, like, if you're putting out like music, that's like so personal, so kind of like
Mm.
it feels very like a very vulnerable record. I mean, to be honest, I mean,
Definitely,
like,
man. Yeah, it's extremely vulnerable. Yeah, and I was fucking apprehensive about that as well, man. Because
that's
like,
what I was gonna ask. Yeah,
yeah, I get scared about people around me and like my parents and also my ex and shit like that, and just be like, "Fuck, is this gonna hurt her or whatever, or is this gonna
yeah,
make people say something to her?" But like, I think at the end of the day, you just kind of have to. Hang on one sec. Thanks, Helen. See you later. You just have to kind of go for it, and that, like, essentially that's what art is. Like, some people are able to do it in a more cryptic way
yeah,
where they can kind of put a different, more poetic side of themselves across. But my stuff is very direct, man. It's
yeah,
very like
totally.
it's almost like country-ish lyrics in a way. Sometimes, it's
Yeah,
like I'll just put it all, whatever's on. I'll wear my heart on my sleeve, and I've tried to do it other ways. I can't, so this is the only way I know how. And I mean, someone's got to do it.
yeah.
you know.
Also in like a country like Ireland, which is like relatively small. I mean,
Yeah, that's the other dark thing. Yeah, exactly.
exactly. Like
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's like even Dublin scene. I mean, just like bump into people all the time. It's like it's kind of like I don't know. It's like a really difficult thing, I guess. Like where
definitely.
because
Yeah, man.
when
I on my first album, like I have a line that's just like, I haven't popped the Xanax since my son was born. Like I
yeah,
have to sing that with my man in the room. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
even that alone is like, and then my dad looks at that and goes, "Geez, I didn't know he was on them." Something like
yeah.
that. It's like that's the consequences of it right there. But like, you just do it because it's real, and that's what you do.
Yeah, totally. And I think like that
Yeah.
kind of like authenticity kind of like shine through. I mean, like I think with any artist, like there's just more resonance when something seems sincere and something like I don't know. It's difficult because like I remember like like kind of like music from like even a decade ago, more now probably at this point, like it was all about like people were playing characters. I feel like, in
Yeah.
the rap scene in Ireland, it was like people were like talking about being gangsters and talking about like
Mm.
running shit and stuff. It's like you're like a 12 year like you're like 15-year-old from like the
Yeah.
suburbs of Crumlin or something. It's like,
Yeah.
it just seems like so insincere.
I have no interest in that unless it's real. Like if you're
Yeah,
really a drug dealer or a gangster, I want to hear about that because
totally.
that's your life. If
Mhm.
you're That's why, man, I get so pissed off with people talking about how much money they have on songs.
Yeah.
Like, or how many girls have had sex with it. Like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, I know you're broke. I know you're not getting with any girls. I
Yeah.
want to hear about that because that's way more interesting to me.
Yeah, totally.
Especially like lads talking about fucking bust down watches and fucking Benzes and foreigns and shit. It's like they've never even been in one. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, will you relax, man? Or you're in one for a fucking couple of days because it was a rental. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like, please
yeah.
stop. I want to hear about your struggle, like your life, your struggle.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. But I think they just look at what's popular
Hmm.
and they see like, oh, these guys are all talking about how much money they have. Some of them do have the money, some of them don't, and they just kind of copy that. And it's just very, I don't know, people just copy the UK, they copy America, and like that's why we're still behind here because we're still fucking copying the UK.
Yeah.
We need to learn our own sounds, and I'm guilty of it as well, man, because sonically, even on the new record, the only song that really, well, maybe Forest, but only Human and Forest are the only two songs, maybe Rosemary as well, that
Yeah.
have Irish instruments on them.
Hmm.
I really want to follow that a bit more. I
Yeah.
think Strange Boy has done that very well.
Yeah.
I think in Limerick they're a little bit ahead of the curve, but I think that's when we're going to get fucking places. Like we're
Yeah.
really going to. Actually, Cello does it in Dublin as well because um, his producer uses like uilleann pipes and shit, which is very good.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about like how the kind of like I forget who it was, but I was like talking about like how the kind of I see like the preservation of kind of like Irish traditional and classical music is kind of like coming into like all genres. Like I mean the
Mm.
instrumentation, I mean like if you were to incorporate something like a harp or like a baron
Mm.
or something like that, it just has like a very it's hard to say 'cause like especially with like a baron, it feels just like a percussion instrument, but it just has a very distinctive Celtic sound to it, I think. Um,
Yeah,
and it's just kind of like, you
you
listen
have
to
to
it.
do it in the right way. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like but it
yeah,
just adds like a kind of like Irish flavor
an
to it. And it's
atmosphere. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah, it does bring that. Yeah, they all have their different emotions attached to them. Like
Yeah.
instruments are like emotions, and they have, they bring a different energy each of them, and I suppose it's about harnessing that in the best way possible. It's actually
Yeah.
quite difficult to do in a good way. I think that's probably why Strange Boy is the only one that's really done it well so far.
Yeah.
It's fucking hard to do, but
Yeah.
I want to work at that and try to master that. And I think that's kind of a way of also growing older gracefully in hip hop because I don't want to be 40 and rapping on grime beats still, unless I've made it on grime beats, or like I don't want to be 40 trying to like take the younger sound and try to run with that. That's for young people to do.
Hmm.
When I'm 40, I want to be like carving my own path in music, which I'm already doing. Like I feel like November Medicine is quite an original album,
Yeah,
whether
totally.
the originality in it is the vulnerability or is it the drumless beats or is it a mix of those two. I think maybe it's that, but yeah, I think trying to find a way to grow older gracefully in hip hop is hard.
Yeah.
Probably why Andre 3000 can't do it.
Yeah.
But other people can. And I saw the interview with him recently where he was talking about he's got nothing to say because he's in his 40s, and I don't really agree with that, man, because you got loads to say.
Yeah.
I feel like he's just fallen out of love with that type of creating music, and that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, like, but I actually kind of appreciate like his like just like kind of 180, just like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
trying something new. And it's like, all right, fair enough.
Oh
Like,
no, it's very cool. The music he's making is very cool.
yeah, yeah.
But I
Um,
think I don't agree with him that you've nothing to say just because you're that age. Like Lil Wayne is still saying shit. Like loads of rappers. Jay-Z said some of his best stuff in the sport.
yeah.
Like there's loads of rappers that can't.
Yeah, and even if like kind of your life sort of stagnates and kind of becomes a familiar rhythm, the world around you is perpetually changing, so it's hard not
100%.
to be able to kind of like take from the real world and sort of go like,
Also,
okay,
absolutely. Also, the insights, like we were even touching on earlier, man, the insights that age brings as well in terms of like just some wisdom about like how to, like we were saying earlier, like how to carry yourself and not trying so hard and shit like that.
Yeah,
That's shit that you can try to like pass on.
yeah,
Like if someone tried to pass that on to me, like without being preachy, but did it in a cool way
yeah,
years and years ago, man, that could have saved me a lot of fucking hardship in life. So
yeah.
there is lessons that older people can give us, that can be transmuted into art, I suppose.
Yeah, but to get the flip side of that, I guess I'd argue, sometimes you ever worry that like the views that you have or kind of the experience you have for a modern younger people can be sort of I don't know, antiquated or kind of
Oh, for sure, yeah,
that's the
definitely.
other issue too. It's
I think
like
yeah, I think you'd be a fool if you were to think that saying that might apply to everybody else. It's like, no, definitely not.
yeah,
Absolutely not. But some of them do for sure. You know,
yeah.
it's like a mix, isn't
Um,
it? Sorry, if I'm cutting out for a second now, it's because I'm in apartments. I'll be back in 2 minutes, but we can keep chatting if you can hear me.
yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect.
Um,
It's dropping some schnauzers back.
I guess like one
A
thing
little message.
I'll
Yeah, go for it.
ask is that at the beginning the album opens with the spoken word "Love You," and there's
Mm.
just a part in it that I quoted here. It says, "Everything in the world isn't easy right now. It's pretty fucked up actually." And I was kind of thinking, like, is there ever like a point in time where that line isn't applicable? I guess it seems like we always feel like we're living in fucked up times.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt. I think those times do come when we feel like it's not crazy out there,
Yeah,
but these days they're few and far between. And
yeah,
also because we hear about things so easily now. It's like I think what I was referring to there in that particular voice note was like COVID and a breakup,
yeah,
like those two. Like it's the domestic and the external
yeah,
compounding together to create this majorly fucked up where my whole life was in an overhaul period.
hmm
But I think um because we're so connected now, it's all we hear about all the worst shit that's happening.
yeah.
Like if I like half of my feed on my Instagram reel is like lads getting knocked out or like car crashes and shit. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
even when I go on my phone, I don't feel safe. So I feel like the more connected we become, and I'm kind of rambling here, but the more disconnected as well, and it does make the world feel like a bit of a scary place. So
Yeah,
I think that's probably more true now than it's ever been.
yeah,
But yeah, I totally get your point. There is like that. It is a really like it's a true thing to say that there is there. It's always been a time where the world has seemed like that statement could be true at any fucking time
yeah,
in the last 20 years.
yeah. But then even like in my lifetime, like I'm looking now, like what's happened at Gaza and to the Palestinian people, and I'm kind of just like it's really depressing. I think it might, again,
So
just from
depressed
what
as well.
I lived through, it might be like the worst news story where you just kind of see like a genocide basically occurring. You're like you feel so fucking hopeless where you're like, Jesus
It's
Christ, like
helpless, bro.
I can
And you
donate,
know
I
what?
can do stuff, but like what can I
Yeah,
really do in an
you
impactful
can
way?
like same with me. Like you can try put on a gig or fucking raise awareness on your Instagram or like do all that shit, but like it's hopeless in a lot of ways because it's like we were saying the stuff about Ireland. It's like the money, like it's money that these people care about. Like
Yeah,
it's so sad, man, because like we've pretended in the Western world that we're just this like peaceful, freedom loving. Like America is great, Britain is
yeah,
great, Ireland is great, Europe is amazing. But like they're bad over there, China are really bad, and like Middle East are crazy, but like
yeah,
we're worse. We're actually worse, man. We're
yeah,
allowing the genocide of children to happen, and it's not like a conspiracy theory. It's actually happening right in front of us. Some
yeah,
people are being like their land is being dispossessed and their children are being murdered, and we're just like, oh yeah, it kind of goes against the way things are running, so we're gonna let it fly.
hmm
Like it's fucking mad, you know.
Yeah.
It really is, and it is depressing, man. Because like, what the fuck can we do? Like, what can we actually do, short of getting a plane over there?
Yeah. And I think also like we look at like kind of how much of like, the kind of like institutions that have become part of like our Western living, things like Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King,
Mm,
etc., become like,
hmm
you have to kind of boycott everything, but like eventually you just get to the point where you're like, well, is there anything that's not funneling money to what I'm opposed to, let's say, is like, you know what I mean, like these kind of like just regulatory institutions. I would say not regulatory, the kind of commonplace institutions. I mean, say
mm.
are just like all kind of like funneling money to the quote unquote bad guys. It's just like I don't know.
Yeah,
It just feels like so dystopian,
like yeah, you can vote, you can try vote with your consumerism or whatever, but unless you're cutting out everything, you're kind of fucked because, like you're saying, it's all part of the same toxic system,
Yeah,
and the whole thing is poisonous, and the whole thing has allowed a situation where this is happening, and this
yeah,
is going unchecked because Israel is so powerful
yeah,
financially, and they have the good friends
yeah,
in the US and the EU and Britain. Sure, Britain fucking started Israel pretty much. So
yeah.
yeah, man, what do you do? But like,
Yeah.
it's just fuck all we can do except for talk about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like I don't know, it feels so hopeless. But on the other hand, I guess like the flip
yeah.
side, kind of everything we're talking about, so I do think like consciousness is growing in the kind of a
100%.
positive way. Actually, your album touches on like sort of the kind of like late capitalist kind of system we're in now, where it's
Mm,
kind of like I think everyone's kind of like envisioning something better. Not everyone has a suggestion of what that is, but I think like we realize the instability of capitalism for the environment for people's lives in many
for
ways. It seems
ourselves,
like
for
something,
ourselves, even. Yeah.
yeah, it just seems like something that can't really continue indefinitely anymore. I was wondering, like, do you think there's any optimism to be taken from kind of like the world as it is now? Actually, for example, like I see like even with the Dublin riots as kind of disgraceful and as embarrassing as say,
Mm,
where you do see like the flip side where people are kind of like, okay, I can't really be passive about this anymore. I have to speak out
mm,
against this. You see
mm,
people who I would have considered to be quite politically apathetic suddenly
mm.
like speaking out and going fuck this, you know what I mean, this isn't us or whatever. So I don't know, I mean, like I guess there is like there's for every action there's counteraction, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's about waking up, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
all that stuff you said is so true, and it's like I can't remember what that fucking phrase is, but it's like the 100 monkey or the 1,000 monkey. As soon as that, there's like some river that's like curing some disease or whatever, and the monkeys are like, oh, this is like, this river is bullshit, it doesn't work.
Hmm.
And 900 monkeys do it. But then when 999 monkeys do it, everybody starts doing it because it's like enough monkeys have done it. I
Yeah.
feel like that's the same way as like, waking up to that things aren't like magic, and they're not like we're not like living in the right ways that we should be, and people aren't happy, and that's the bottom line, man. People are literally not happy at all. When you like ask 9 out of 10 people, they're like, "Ah, yeah, I'm getting by, like I'm okay."
Hmm.
Two or three of them might be in a really bad place. Five of them, six of them might be okay, and one of them might be happy. It's like that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And I can say the same for myself. It's like I've struggled with mental health shit for like years and years and years, and like I've been to doctors and I've been to therapists and I've tried to fucking change different things, and like you kind of just have to wake up one day and just say, right, nobody's going to do it for me. I kind of just have to fucking get it myself and get a hold of it myself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had to do. But like, I don't know, it's not the same when it comes to the way things are, like capitalism and stuff, because it's so hard to change that stuff.
Right.
Like I find activism quite hard personally. Like I try to repost stuff on my Instagram. I try to write stuff myself when I feel that way inclined. But like, I can't help but battle this feeling of like, oh, people think I'm insincere for saying this. Like I
Yeah.
can't even help that because there's so many detractors every time you say something.
Hmm.
Like even I made a post about like the riots, and like I wasn't even criticizing the people who took part in the riots. I was just criticizing the leaders and like our government and shit like that. And like, man, the amount of messages I had on TikTok from people just being like, "Oh, fucking, you're talking lies and all this stuff," and I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm not," like, and that it's hard to fight against that. It's tiring at times, And
Yeah.
I'm not even an activist, you know. I can imagine what it's like for actual fucking activists or actual women or people of color that have to like fight against these injustices like in their daily lives. You know, it's fucking sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just have to keep trying, I guess.
Yeah. And actually, yeah, that's the other thing too. Is that like sometimes as a white guy myself, like sometimes you go
Yeah.
about like they're targeting women, they're targeting trans people, they're
Mm,
targeting
mm,
people of color, and it's just kind of like you just look at it and you go, fuck man, like
mm.
as much as I try my best to like I'll never understand it personally, I'll never
No,
experience that, you know what I mean?
no,
And
you
it's
can't. Yeah.
really fucking scary though, man. You just see like the kind of like but no, like you were saying, like with therapy and stuff, like to an extent, we can kind of better our own lives and kind of like take
Mm,
steps to better our own lives. But I mean, I think a lot of like the kind of like mental health strife that seemingly many people are having nowadays, myself
mm,
included, it's kind of like based on the world around us. I mean, it's hard not to
mm,
look at like you were saying, the dystopian kind of like
mm,
capitalist system we're under. It's hard to look at, world events and just everything and
mm.
I kind of like have a chirpy, like perfect mental health. It's hard, you know what I mean? I think we're
But I
products
would
of
be
our
honest.
environment, you
Yeah,
know?
it would be honest. Things aren't sunny, you know.
Yeah,
It's not just the weather that's bumming us out, you know. That's just one ingredient. But yeah, things aren't great. They're
yeah,
not like there's a huge disparity in wealth. There's a huge disparity in privilege. There's fucked up shit going on left, right, and center. There's hatred. There's division. But then you're saying on the other side of that, there is love and there is hope and there is art being made and just this constant dance. But it just gets to a stage where you're like, fuck, is this getting worse and worse and worse?
yeah.
Like, is this going to keep getting worse? And I worry about it because my child, I'm just like, man, fuck, he was born pretty much just before COVID started off. Like, he's never known anything normal, like
Yeah,
he's never known a world that's not in chaos. So I would like to raise him in a place that's not fucked up and that, we're not all broke and people are given a good opportunity to make a living and stuff, but I do wonder sometimes if that's going to be the case.
yeah. Actually, that's a good point because like your music and this album, like is I think a very positive thing. I mean, it is based on, I think, like at a core kind of running throughout it is, I think,
Mm,
solidarity and love. I was wondering
mm,
because like you were kind of mentioning as you kind of get older that you find yourself like kind of relaxing and not having the concern for yourself. But as a father, I mean, do you find that like the betterment for the world isn't so much for your own it isn't so much for your own kind of like benefit. It's more like thinking about your child and the world. Like does that kind of rejuvenate, I guess, like a sense of like wanting betterment in the world and that kind of like fight for and the kind of the kind of spreading of love and solidarity, I guess.
it does. It kind of multiplies everything, to be honest. Like it multiplies the worry,
Yeah,
as well,
totally.
and it multiplies the hope and the kind of like energy inside yourself to fight for it as well.
Yeah,
Especially with the racism stuff, man. That seems to be the one that really, whatever way I'm programmed, that's always kind of hit me from day one. I'd always be fucking pissed off at people shouting on about,
yeah,
right? Like just how fucking shite that you hear people talking about in Ireland, mostly from the generation above, where they're always just like going on about fucking immigrants, and
yeah.
it's just base level, like not smart talk at all. It's just like that seems to be the one that really annoys me the most. So I just want to steer him away from a world where that is present, but it just seems to be getting worse for some reason right now. I
Yeah.
don't know if it will get better. I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think it will?
Like I was saying, like I do think like it can get very like discouraging when you see like young people kind of like get involved with like racism and transphobia and just kind of
That's
like
scary, man. Yeah,
reactionary forces.
yeah.
But like I was saying, the positive aspect is that I do think that creates the counter where people get more kind of radicalized against it, where they kind of go like,
Mm,
We can't be passive about this." So I don't really know.
very
I mean,
true.
it's hard for
Yeah.
me to kind of like have a perception if we'll move further left or if we'll move further
Mm,
right going forward. I mean, I
mm,
would personally hope we move further left, and you
yeah.
look at kind of like the current like I was thinking about this the other day. Like you looked at like kind of Fine Gael during the 2010s when you had things like the marriage referendum and
Yeah.
same sex marriage and the abortion referendum, and it seemed
Mm,
like they were kind of trying to move, not left, but like trying to become kind of more liberal than say Fianna Fáil, or appear
mm,
more liberal or more progressive. And I thought, like, as cynical as that was, I thought that was positive because that would have shown kind of like a perception that like we're moving a bit
yeah.
towards that.
No, it
But then
did.
like
Yeah.
towards this decade though, I mean you hear like, I think Leah Varadkar like, really just giving like a lot of weight to some of the quote unquote concerns of the far right. And but then like
Mm.
it escalates to the point that we saw like only like 2 weeks ago now. And it's kind of like suddenly then he has to do 180. It's very like it's very perplexing to kind of go like where are we exactly like like
It's bro, it's the futile and insincere nature of party politics. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
even the stuff you're talking about there. You're so right. It was really nice to see Ireland becoming more progressive with the marriage referendum and abortion, but
Yeah.
those are such base level things that like shouldn't even be a referendum, bro. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, totally.
even the fact that you're having a referendum about whether people of the same sex should get married, like I know we have to because of the constitution and X, Y, and Z, but it
Sure.
even pissed me off that we had to have a referendum on that because it's like you're having a referendum on just something that's a normal right for a normal person, you know.
Mhm.
And the same with abortion. It's like crazy to even I shouldn't even be voting on that. It's never going to fucking affect me, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's mad. And like, these Fine Gael come along and they take credit for this, which they did. Took so much
Yeah,
credit.
yeah.
But even Leo Varadkar, a gay man, didn't really support gay marriage until the populists did. Like,
Right.
like as a party politician, they would have been against having a referendum until they had to do it, until they knew that, oh shit, everybody wants this and it's going to boost our popularity. And it's the same for everything. I'm really into drug legalization, like drug legislation and stuff. I did
Yeah,
my
same.
thesis on it, and it's the same for that, man. Can you imagine that weed is still fucking illegal here? Like
Yeah.
that's how slow we are. Like I did my thesis on legalization of weed in Ireland like 7 years ago or something,
Yeah.
and I think it was 2015 or 16 when Gino Kenny put in his bill for people before profit to legalize weed
Yeah.
medicinally. That was, and they accepted his bill like in one whatever Oireachtas referendum, and then they just fucking like slowed it down and slowed it down. And
Right.
7 years later, we still don't have medicinal weed in this country, and
Oh, do
every
we?
other
Oh,
country has it.
I thought we did.
We have it, but it's a very
Oh,
limited scope. Like it's not
okay.
like you can just go into the doctor and get it.
Right,
Like we
right.
have, like there's certain patients who might have MS that can get a certain cannabis product, but
Yeah.
it's not weed. It's like a spray called like it's like a sativa kind of spray stuff.
Okay.
It's not, yeah. But we don't have no medicinal marijuana in this country. No, we need that though. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also I thought about this before. I thought it was really funny because like when I was in I can't remember if it was in primary or secondary. I think it was in secondary.
Mm.
But like we did history class, right? And they talked about prohibition and
Mm.
the kind of the prohibition in the context of like I think it was 1930s America where they outlawed alcohol and then Eliot Ness and you had all
Mm.
that kind of going on and
Mm-hmm.
then but the kind of message was basically, if you outlaw something that has a demand, the demand doesn't go away. The supply
Oh,
goes
it
on the black
creases.
market.
Yes, black market everything.
And you think about
And
that
then,
like with anything,
yeah,
like with drugs, with abortion, with
cocaine, same.
prostitution, anything.
Yeah.
It's like, if you outlaw something, I don't know. That was the other thing too, because like there was they outlawed what you got. Well, they didn't. It's kind of weird. They took I think they make like legislation without ever like really talking to the people whose lives it's going to affect.
100%. Oh my God, they do that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the thing about like, you're making such a good point there about prohibitions. Like, on one hand, they'll complain about the Kinahans and they'll complain about like antisocial behavior that drug use brings, and they'll complain about all
yeah,
this stuff, violence, and we hate gang warfare, and like it's the biggest scourge in our street. But you're funding them by making
totally,
these drugs illegal. And
totally.
also you're funding people to die from fentanyl, from all these other horrible mixed like Zimmos that are going around that are like
Yeah,
Xanax that's fucking dirt in it, and people in the flats are dying from all that shit.
yeah,
And then you'll have the audacity to say that, oh, the underground drug cartels are the worst thing to happen to Ireland. It's like,
Yeah.
you're causing the fucking shit, and you have an opportunity to make this cleaner and to
Mhm.
educate everybody at the same time about, drug use and how dangerous it can be if it's not used properly and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they don't, because they're just cowards, and they'll only wait for, like the gay marriage thing. They'll wait till everybody is like ready, good
Yeah.
and ready, not even just ready, just good and fucking ready, and then they'll do it when they know it's an open goal, and they're
Yeah.
not willing to take any risks in terms of legislation.
Yeah, no, and that actually the other thing was like even you know, even like regulating THC levels because that's a new concern
Mm,
now. It's that because I think
mm.
a lot of weed now has like I know I'm not an expert on it, but like the THC levels is like a lot
Through the
higher
roof,
now than
through
yeah.
the
It's
roof. It's
like
like about
which
30% on some drugs, which is
yeah,
insane. That's causing like psychosis among young people.
exactly.
It's insane.
And
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like if you legalize, you regulate it, not only do you get the revenue that would generate, and believe me, generate a lot of
a
revenue.
lot. Yeah,
Like you
a
go
lot.
through Dublin, man, and it's hard to find a spot where you can't smell weed. So you get like
Yeah,
revenue from that, but also you
yeah.
get to regulate. Like legitimately, if it's about public health, it's like okay, you get to set those levels, and
Hmm.
and then there will be legitimate. Like you see it like in any state in America that legalizes weed, like it
Hmm.
creates a legitimate business. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Absolutely. Like if you look at what they did in Colorado, and I'm not saying it's perfect,
Yeah.
but they legalized it. They made a free market of it, so it's not controlled by the government. There's just legislation to rule it,
Yeah.
and they put a lot of the revenue back into education.
Yeah.
So it didn't actually cause this crazy, crisis of like weed drivers and all the shit that you hear about.
Yeah.
It actually made it safer. There's billboards trying to educate people. The same things we should have about alcohol here, man. We don't have enough
Yeah.
alcohol regulation in this country, but we have over-regulated every other substance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually funny about the alcohol regulations that
Mm.
like we totally said like, okay, we're trying to make tobacco as like, as secretive as possible so that new kids don't do it. But then it's like
Mm.
which, is fair. But then like you
Yeah,
just like
it's
walk
working.
and there's just billboards for like alcohol everywhere. It's like
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Which is actually, not as physically harmful as tobacco, but
Yeah.
way more mentally harmful, you
Totally.
know?
Totally.
Like we're so easy going when it comes to booze in this country. We've made it our fucking, our main export and our main tourism kind of whatever
Yeah.
central to our tourism. But it's weird that we just overregulate every other fucking substance, including the one that's way less harmful than the two, cigarettes and alcohol.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man, you've been very gracious with your time. I'll just ask like one or two last things.
Yeah, court man, I'm not in any rush.
Oh, perfect.
Worried about
Yes.
you having to write this all down.
Ah, man, I'm grand. No, I've gotten good at editing.
Okay, good.
Um, yeah, I guess like so. Obviously, I mean, like for 2023, I mean, you had the album that was a big kind of like I guess like
Mm.
thing to cap off the year. But I mean, just generally, I mean, how did you find like this year altogether? I mean, did you find kind of any growth, or do you find you're in a comfortable spot now where like you're kind of mentioning where you're just putting out the art that you want to make, and it's not about
Mm.
like I don't know, trying to like top the Billboard 100,
Mm.
200 or whatever. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like I didn't even my last album was like a top 10 album in Ireland, and I didn't this time I didn't even care about that at all. I
Yeah,
just kind of I didn't want to put that stress on myself of being like, let's get it in the top five and have to post about it and like get all my
right.
friends to buy it on iTunes and shit like that.
Yeah,
I was like, that's kind of going to take away the fun out of it for me. So the popularity thing is just like, obviously it'd be nice, man. You know what I mean? But like,
yeah,
I connect with people all the time about my music. Like I was down in Dingle at the weekend, and man, so many people come up to me and talk to me about like, Rosemary, or like how the songs like how the last album helped them or how this album helped them, and I get messages all the time about it. Like that's a success for me. You know what I mean? Like that's
totally.
if I can survive and like feed my young fella and like not have to work every hour, God gave me, like that's fucking successful. The music industry, man. I mean, like all the other stuff we've been talking about is so fucking hard at the moment.
Mm,
And I think what scares me about it is I talk to my friends that are successful in it, like way more successful than me, and
mhm.
they're not happy and they're stressed.
Yeah,
And I'm like, fuck. I don't know if I want to go there. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I want to go. And that might be convenient for me to say because I'm not going to go there. But like at the same time, I'm like, I'm kind of happy that I'm not because I don't necessarily want the big team relying on me for a paycheck
Right.
and me having to make 10 TikToks a week to fucking to make that happen, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm happy to just post on TikTok when I see a fucking funny looking pigeon. That's
Right.
great. You know? Like shit like that. That's great. I don't
Yeah.
want the pressure of having to go viral all the time, you know?
Yeah.
It's not really I mean, God bless you if that's what you want, but it just doesn't seem like my idea of fun, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a danger these days. And I'm okay because I'm not a mysterious artist, you know, like but for say for someone like For Those I Love or someone that is quite mysterious with their art and quite delicate with it and takes their time over it and doesn't want to expose themselves too much to the public, like has a bit of privacy about them, which I don't have any of. But
Hmm.
I feel for those people because I'm like, man, we don't want him making 10 TikToks a week. We don't want to see that much of him because we want to keep the mystery around him because it keeps it fucking special. And the
Mhm.
music industry isn't set up for those people anymore. You know, it's not set up that a person like him can just come out and blow everybody away and make a good living. Like he already came out and blew everybody away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like he should be rewarded for that in many different ways. Like he shouldn't have to go on fucking reels and TikTok and like
Sure.
show his arse. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
already given enough, you know. And I think we're expecting too much from our artists these days. Like you're almost expected to really be 10 different things when you should just be concentrating on making a great record, you know.
Yeah.
And
No.
I think what's going to happen from that is that we're not going to get great records anymore, which is sad, you know.
Oh, really? Is that how you kind of predict it? Because actually, I was thinking like like the kind of the sort of musical landscape we're in right now. It kind of like prioritizes single
Mm.
releases. So it's like you have to have a single
Yeah,
every couple of months just to kind of
yeah.
keep your relevancy out there. Yeah, it's a good point.
Mm.
I mean, like, do you think that's gonna like kind of kill the more kind of like larger full length releases, or how do you kind of see that going?
I think certain artists that are already established or that have just missed, that have just got in before the window, like the Lancoms,
Yeah.
people like that, For Those I Love, like they can always go off for a couple of years and come back with a stormer of a project, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I think it's hard for people that aren't as popular to keep making great art because, well, what happened with me was that I made an album that everybody really liked. And then I went away for a long, long time to make sure that the second album was as good or better. It's way better in my opinion. But
Yeah.
like I wasn't rewarded for that at all for going off, obviously, as I wouldn't expect to be. But like I seen every year my fucking name gets less and less, and like I'm on the, you know, this year I'm on the fucking really high up in a festival. The next year I'm lower. The next year I'm even lower, and
Yeah.
then I can't get booked anymore. And then I'm like, fuck, gotta get this album out, you know. And like, it's scary because like that's not rewarding people for going off and
Yeah.
making art at all. So what people are gonna do is they're gonna keep dropping bullshit singles and not having big projects, you know.
Right.
And that's the way the world is set up right now, you know. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just okay. Nobody's to blame for that. I'm not blaming anybody, but that's just the way that social media has driven it. Our attention spans are small. We
Okay.
want a quick fix and then it's forgotten about, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
No, it's a really good point. Like it's like yeah, because like you think like any creative output should be kind of what you would hope would be the result of someone who has a genuine passion to kind of release something. I mean, obviously everyone who does creative work is susceptible to like
Mm,
writer's block or just like periods of just like no inspiration really. But
mm,
then like you don't really have that luxury of not being inspired anymore, of wanting to tightly craft, what you do have. You have to kind of
mm,
like perpetually. It kind of makes like a meal out of like what everyone's doing.
mm. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, you're not rewarded for going off and kind of like really carving something out. Well, or you might not have the resources, or you might just get too fucking anxious about your position in people's like eyes or whatever of you.
Yeah.
It's really hard, and I think that's probably we've hit on there. What's essentially the hardest thing about music now is the kind of the anxiety and the ups and downs around having your name out there and
Yeah.
having some kind of notoriety attached to your name.
Yeah.
It's really difficult because your ego is so powerful that you have to fight against it all the time and to be like, oh, I'm amazing, or else the other side of that is like people are forgetting about me. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
it's so hard to have that monster in you, like, and every artist has it, like, however big or small. Some have it way bigger, and you can see that, and some have it way fucking smaller. But we all have it because we wouldn't be releasing art if we didn't.
Yeah.
We just probably make it and leave it there, and the consistent fight with that I find difficult. I do find it difficult to think about sometimes being forgotten, and then sometimes like I think Mac Miller said it really well. It's like you can wake up on your phone like in the first 30 seconds of waking up, and one person can be calling you a cunt and the other person's going to be calling you God. And it's like,
Sure.
what the fuck does that do to your head? And on a smaller level, it's just as damaging because you probably know the people. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, the bigger or smaller you get, it's still hard. It's hard to manage, but it's one of like at the same time, I don't want to be moaning about it too much because I'm blessed to make it and I love doing it. And I wouldn't be doing it. I could just do something else if I wanted to, but I do love it, but it is a hard industry.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also, I mean, like, for other people who, do at a professional level where it is their like full-time occupation, it's kind of like,
Mm,
I don't know, it's like like from what I can see, it seems like it kind of kills the art in a way. It kills because it just becomes routine. It kind of becomes like anything else, like working in an office or whatever. It's like
yeah.
this is your occupation now, and whatever
Yeah.
love you have. I mean, like I can't
There's a
think of
lot
like
riding on it then.
yeah, I can't think of people who get a little more seasoned and kind of like people feel. I don't know. I think it makes art worse in a way because like you have to kind of like perpetually be releasing things. Like I think of like
Well, that's why you don't see U2 making good albums. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like that, obviously they have incredible albums, but you don't
yeah,
see them. You don't see bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, like they're lucky to have had a Californication, like whatever that was, 15, 20 years into their career.
yeah,
They're kind of an outlier, but like for the most part, if you put all that pressure on creativity, like creativity goes, fuck you. I'm not
right.
gonna just like dance for you when you want me to. You know what I mean? Like what happens is you need to be loose and free for that shit.
Yeah,
Or you need to be genuinely going through some shit where it's gonna help you. And
yeah,
that I think that's where I was on this record. It was like I was really going through it. All I had was music, man. I was like, I have because COVID was going on as well. I was like, I have nothing happening right now. I can't escape from this hard
yeah,
situation that I'm faced with. All I can do is just like have these speakers in front of me, have a roadie, and fucking try to write a good verse. And it
yeah,
was that way. That was the way that I was able to escape it. But when you have a lot of money and then you have a whole team that's riding on it, it's just too much fucking pressure, man.
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's
Uh,
hard. I feel good. Like I have so much respect for those bands and artists that are able to continuously make good music. Like that's fucking amazing, to be able to make it in music and keep making music that people can relate to. Like while you're still not living as part of those people because you've made so much money that you're separated from them now by wealth. It's like I respect the fuck out of that, man. It's a true skill.
yeah. And I think like also like I don't know, like I think sometimes like, in the kind of like once it kind of becomes routine and once it kind of becomes set like
Mm,
that, like sometimes people kind of like revert back to kind of like my concern, I guess, and maybe this is just like I don't know, over exaggerate, but like I
mm,
wonder like will people kind of like once they run out of inspiration, they kind of go back to the well of what was once inspired, and I wonder like does that
mm,
kind of like ruin the art? I think of, and I don't know why, but this is like I don't want to single him out, but like I think of like
mm,
Eminem, where it's like he
mm.
put out once he kind of like came back and he did like
He's a great example of that, actually.
yeah, when he did like relapse,
Mm,
and when he did like his albums, they weren't as well received, and I think like perpetually they
mm,
started like kind of getting less and less attention. People started
mm,
kind of like getting disinterested. It
mm,
comes to a point where people just want to hear the old stuff. And what I
mm.
found interesting was then he did like the Marshall
And
Matters
it wasn't
album
good.
part
Yeah,
two, but it's kind of like it's like okay, that's like works as a gimmick for a second. It's like oh shit, that album I love. They're doing like a second
yeah.
part to it, but then it kind of comes out and it's just like it's the same shit too. You know what I mean? I wonder if that's like,
Yeah, but the problem is you're still old. You're old then trying to
yeah,
go back to recapture something that was amazing when it was fresh. And like the reason Eminem was good and he worked was because he was punk and he was like
yeah,
he had the middle finger up the whole time and like he was saying some fucked up shit that you probably couldn't get away with saying these days at
Totally.
all.
No, totally.
But like, you can't be a 50-year-old and go back to do that. Like, it does not work. Like the only thing about Eminem that Eminem has worked well at in the last, say, 15 years is when he did like those songs like Going Through Changes and shit like that, where it was like, oh, I was talking about having a drug overdose, like a real fucking thing that happened to me, and
Yeah.
this is dark shit. That was really good. I was like, bro, I'm in for this. But when he starts going back to the goofy thing, it just doesn't work. Yeah, yeah. So
Well,
like,
it's
like
kind of like
your
that
point is
sincerity
good.
we're talking about. So good.
Yeah, to go back to the well, where you once started from and try to drink it again
Yeah.
in the exact same way, I don't think it's going to work for you. You know, you're going to have to get a bit more creative than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you ever worry that like it'll get to that point for you, or do you kind of find like do you think you'd be kind of capable of saying like, okay, like what's done is done, and I'm kind of like
Oh yeah, man,
finished now.
100%. And I think about it all the time. Like I'm like, if I don't want to do this anymore, I'm just not going to do it. You know, I'm going to
Yeah.
do something else. Like I've been relatively good at everything I've kind of tried. Not to be a big head about it, but like I'm able to conquer things, you know? So like I started rapping when I was 33, man. Like
Yeah.
how many fucking people have done that? Nobody in Ireland has done that, you know? And
Yeah.
and came and kind of traversed where I have, where nobody goes, oh, this guy's way too old to do this
Yeah.
or anything like that. Like nobody has said that to me because I've conquered it pretty good. Not conquered it as in like being, you know, I'm the best rapper in Ireland.
Sure.
I don't think I'm the best rapper in Ireland at all. But like I've nobody has questioned it because I was able to get good really fast, you know? So like I feel like I can do whatever I want to do. You know what I mean? It's just whether something I have to find something that actually inspires me enough to do those things. You know,
Yeah.
um, I don't know if rap still does. I'm not sure yet. You know, I have to see. Like I've written a couple of songs recently. They are good, but yeah, I don't know to be honest. I might make fucking country music. I might, you know,
Yeah.
I might be one of those arseholes starting a podcast. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. I might act. You know, I'll do whatever I feel like. You know, I'm not stuck. What I won't do and what I promise to you I won't do is release shite songs for the sake of it because that's the biggest failure for me. You know what I mean? I couldn't be arsed with that. Like,
No, and then you're kind of like mentioned though, like you have that kind of like freedom to do it because it's his self-release, it's self-published. You don't have people kind of like breathing down your neck for it. I mean, obviously that's like a sense of liberation that like
yeah,
you have that like let's say like for example Eminem doesn't have, and I'm not singling him out. Like I mean, obviously like people grow old, interest dwindle, and as you
yeah,
mentioned, times change. I mean, like the
mm,
Marshall Matters album
yeah.
was like it was good for its time, but it's like you couldn't do that today, and I'm not saying
No,
that in a kind of political correctness, like any of that
no,
shit.
no,
It's
no,
like,
no, no.
times
Nor
change. Like,
should you do that today.
yeah, exactly.
And he
It was.
probably shouldn't have done it then, but he was able to get away with it because of the times that we're living in. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's the
Yeah,
funny thing too, because like you look back and like Eminem was controversial back then too. People were like accusing him of homophobia back then and stuff too. So it's not like oh
mm,
we're so politically correct now, like in the way that we weren't back then. But it's kind of like but like Eminem obviously that's his occupation, that's how he lives his life, and he does have people
mm,
kind of like riding on it too. But it's like I often look back at that and I kind of go like he is someone who could just play like Lose Yourself and Without Me and whatever else, all his big hits
yeah,
from back then, and
yeah.
just be able to tour arenas for the rest of his
Mm,
life. But
hmm.
I wonder, is there like still that creative outlet where it's like, no, if I'm going to be around, I want to still be creating stuff. You know what I mean? I wonder if
Mm.
that's like the creative instinct that all artists have, where it's like, you don't want to just rest on your laurels and your previous glories, and
No, definitely not. Yeah, you always want to be making something new. You know?
yeah,
I think that's why people always feel so bad for one hit wonders, you know, when they go touring
totally,
and it's
yeah.
like they are it's like play that song from fucking 1987 that we don't care about your new shit, you know.
It's so
Like
depressing. Yeah, it's so
that's
depressing.
rough, you know, that's almost worse than never having a hit, you know, almost.
Dude, I've been to
Um
like shows like that where you can tell like what the big hit is, and then if they play, I've been to
yeah,
like some artists and they play it like kind of midway through the set, and everyone just leaves. It's so bad.
like Wheatus or something, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Although they have a couple probably. They have a little bit more. And I think they've Wheatus have turned it into something else now, which is kind of cooler. It's
Yeah,
almost like a story of the band or whatever. But so there may be a bad example, but there is loads of those, yeah, that just had just one hit, and you're just like, oh, bro, that's rough.
it is. It's really
Yeah,
bad. And too, because
yeah,
like it's like, where do you put it in the set? Do you put it early? Do
yeah,
you put
yeah,
it at the
yeah,
end?
yeah. You put it last and have a boring gig, and then, or
Yeah.
do you por do you play it twice? Yeah,
I think like yeah, I don't know. It's like it's it's a really sad thing, but like and even then like you could have like an albums like of great tracks, but like people just want to hear that one thing. That's all people know, and then you get
yeah,
like I don't know. It's an odd thing.
yeah. It's a really odd thing.
I
It
guess kind
is
of
rough.
like sort of wrapping up then. So like I guess like I'll just ask you like I mean what do you have kind of planned for 2024? I mean obviously you have the album out now. You have like a lot of material people want to hear like or that are
Mm,
familiar with now.
mm.
Yeah, I was wondering like what you kind of what your plan is
To,
going from then
to
from
be
there.
honest, I spent so much time on the business side of things, like getting websites and vinyls and PR done and all that shit that I
Yeah.
just kind of want to enjoy playing the fucking songs live and like really just kind of like I want to chill out for Christmas. I
Yeah.
want to like really have some downtime. I want to do this merch market that's in Grand Social. I love that every year. It's so fucking fun. And then I want to just go play as many shows as I can, and I don't care, but I don't care if they're to 20 people or 20,000 people. I just want to have fun, like I've spent enough time struggling over this art that I want to actually get out there and play it, even if it's only 50 people that want to hear it, I don't give a fuck, man. That's great. That's a success, for me. So yeah, I just want to play shows and have a good time and hang out with my friends and do all the fun shit. Yeah, there's enough like we were talking about. There's enough to be worried about in the world. Might as well try to make fun spaces for people to go and like connect with a song emotionally or connect with a song energetically and
Yeah.
have that feeling that we all love from music.
Perfect.
Mm.
Thanks very much for your time, man. You've been really gracious.
Ah man, Aaron, I really enjoyed that, bro. I have to say, it was really
Thanks,
nice.
man.
Yeah, really great interview.
Thanks, man. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you liked it, please subscribe and stick around because we have plenty more like this coming soon.